All right, friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. I'm live streaming a little bit later than I normally do. Those of you that have animals can probably relate. I've got my little kitty cat here that keeps knocking my mouse away, and I'm trying to find it so I can get underway. Anyway, welcome. I'm from thehealthyamerican.org, and let me know how long you've been following the channel. I've been on YouTube since 2020. Can you believe it? I'm recording now live. It's the end of 2024, which means we are going into year 6 if you count 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, starting year 6 of government tyranny and oppression. And I want to talk to you today about the most persecuted group in America today. Let me know in a comment which group you think that is. Are you a part of that group? I want to share with you in this video why I believe I know what the most persecuted group in America is today. And then I want to give you some tools against tyranny with a couple of strategies that most people miss. And it puts me in mind to do that because I and my husband have been, how do I put this delicately and discreetly, involved in some depositions for lawsuits recently. So I have a very clear idea of what's going on, who's being persecuted, and at whose hands. Now, before we talk about all of that stuff, I want to just share with you what I think is a funny little meme. And I share the memes over on my Instagram channel. Let me know if you're on Instagram. I really am there rarely, but I like to share some funny memes. It's a good place to just put, a photo where people are scrolling through. And this is Floridians in Cat 5 hurricanes, and then Floridians in weather below 60 degrees. And I put in the comment, as a part-time Floridian, I approve of this message. And then my question for you is, how cold is too cold for you? So I'm in Florida today, and I think it was, let me see what the temp was and what it's going to be. And even coming from California, it gets chilly. I lived in Southern California. People think that it's just, picture perfect weather all the time. It gets quite cold. So it's going to be 50 degrees. Yes, in the early morning hours here. And it will be a beautiful high in the 70s. So I can't complain there. I will complain about the tyranny and the oppression. But before we go any further, let me thank the sponsor of our show. And we are thanking noblegoldinvestments.com. That's where you should go and give them a call for expert advice at 877-646-5347. Time is running out. Did you know that Citigroup predicts that gold is going to be hitting $3,000 by 2025? Every day that you wait could cost you. Every moment of hesitation basically is a lost opportunity. And maybe I'll do it tomorrow, right? You know how that goes. It puts you farther behind. So Noble Gold Investments is your path to the future, your guide to what is coming. Noble Gold Investments basically is your partner in prosperity. I really like that phrase. So don't wait for gold to hit 3,000. Buy it now while you can, and visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Check this out. You will get 10 of these 1-ounce silver American Eagle coins with your qualified account. I think that's the coolest thing. So get ready for tomorrow's gains today. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com. Remember, every investment carries a risk. There's never a guarantee of any kind in investments, but listen to the experts over at noblegoldinvestments.com. We'll have a link for you in the description box below. Grateful for the sponsors, friends, that this is my full-time job, being here on YouTube, creating content for you, researching, writing. I do not have people that write my scripts. I do not have editors. I don't have a production studio. I don't have fancy intros, which I really don't like. I like to get right to the heart of the matter. So I'm grateful to the sponsors. And that is how I am able to dedicate basically every waking hour to your freedom, to your rights, and to strategies and techniques and approaches that you can employ in order to turn the table on the tyrants, turn the tables on the tyrants, as I like to say. So for the last several years, my husband and I have been educating people about their rights. I find it fascinating that even attorneys are a little bit late to the game. Now, there are some attorneys that have stepped up to the plate over the years. I think many people were literally just kind of, I don't know if they were bamboozled, but they were taken by surprise by what the government foisted upon us back in 2020. And when people are living in fear, it's easy to not question and to just go along with what the government says or any person in authority. I mean, think about it. If you've been in a public school, you are taught to abide by authority from the very get-go. I mean, when you're 5 years old in kindergarten, you're lining up, there are bells that regulate what you can do at what time. You have to do what everybody else does, even though you might be smarter or maybe you need more time to learn. And everybody's treated equally, basically, in these public schools. You are taught and it's instilled in you to respect authority. And it goes on and on and on, especially starting with the public indoctrination schools. By the way, later this week, I've got a favorite guest, Heather Martinson, who has broken free from all of that. She is a pioneer, a leader in what she calls learning outside the box. We've done many programs together, helping parents and grandparents and just concerned people help other parents get their children out of these prison schools. And so she'll be talking about this amazing program that she has. She's not a sponsor of the show. She's a dear friend and a colleague, and I want to help parents understand how they can overcome those challenges. So what happens is you've got the children in the public schools. We're taught over and over and over again to not question authority. Even though when I was in college, we had bumper stickers. Give me a thumbs up or some hearts if you remember that. The bumper stickers said, question authority. And suddenly we're not supposed to. We're supposed to go along with what the government says. And those who are coming into power want us to trust the government. They're telling us that they're going to clean up the government so we can trust it again. Well, trust it again. I never trusted it in the first place. In fact, I'm even more distrusting now that you're telling me that I should trust the very government that I didn't trust. You know, you need to kind of follow their plan of action. And it may or may not come to pass that way. The point being, people trusted authority. They went along with it, either out of fear, out of ignorance. The attorneys, I don't know if they didn't want to put their reputation on the line or whether there was not enough money in it to help people fight and stand up for their rights. I've got a lot that I want to talk about this. And in the next coming days, too, I want to talk about what's going on in Florida in terms of a sheriff has been appointed by Trump. And I want to talk about some of my concerns about that choice. People believe that Florida is a free state. It very much is compared to other states. But in the early days of the government tyranny, many of these authority figures went right along with it. So that's a concern of mine. I also want to talk about the good news coming out of Florida about a state senator or representative who has introduced legislation about the spraying in the skies. And we'll also talk about the limitations of that and what really should be done. So there's a lot that I want to talk about in terms of authority and not trusting authority, but the topic of today's video is actually about turning the tables on the tyrants and the most persecuted group in America. And I can speak from experience because I feel like I, along with my husband, like I was one of the very first voices giving solutions. Oh, there's Tap Tap Tesoro giving solutions to these oppressive maneuvers that were being inflicted upon us by the government. Many people spoke out against it. Don't get me wrong. There were plenty of people with very vehement messages, you know, raising their fist in the air and shouting out against it. But in terms of the solutions offered, you know, we really were the pioneers in this area in terms of helping businesses stay open. They had a right to stay open. There was no law that was passed that they had to close. Many businesses were bamboozled and hoodwinked and just kind of stunned, and they didn't really know what to do and how to do it. So I did a lot of classes and programs and speaking engagements and individual help to keep these businesses open, as is their right. Then I had plenty of people, especially from North Carolina, believe it or not, in the early days reaching out to me saying, you know, Peggy, my employer is harassing me. They're not allowing me to work without violating my religious beliefs. I have a religious belief, they would tell me, that God created the breath of life, and I worship God by breathing. I worship God by speaking and showing my face. I was made in his image, and I don't want to obscure my visage, my face. The Bible says, you shall not fear their faces. And the only ones that hide their faces in the Bible, if you're going by that, are the prostitutes and those who are hiding in shame. So my husband and I helped a lot of Christians stand up for their rights in the workplace. We also helped a smaller number of other people of other faiths, Muslims and Buddhists and Taoists and Catholics and any number of beliefs. So my answer to the question, the most persecuted group in America, it's not just Christians, it's people of faith. And whether or not you are a person of faith, this is important, I believe, because it's not just about your faith. It's about your conscience. It's about your thoughts. It's about your beliefs. And imagine you having to go along with the government, with what the government says you have to believe and do, performing the government rituals in order to keep your job, to travel, to have your children in school, to get medical care, to get your immigration status. It's quite troubling to me. Who was it? Some person of note. I just read, and some of you were telling me, that someone's spouse was having a difficult time getting their immigration status without becoming a human pincushion. And again, I'm just like aghast, because everyone has a right to their religious beliefs. You have a right, if you're seeking your immigration status, green card or citizenship or what have you, you have a right to do that without violating your God-given conscience. And we have helped. We have 100% track record in the immigration status sector. So I was stunned that someone, let me know in a comment who that is, friends. I think you know who I'm talking about. Somebody did a tweet or whatever about their spouse couldn't get their immigration status. And I'm thinking, really? After all these years? I must be falling down on the job. My goal is to reach everyone in the United States and other countries as well, if need be, that needs to understand how to stand up against the tyrants. And I'm shocked that someone in the freedom movement didn't realize that this was a right that they could defend. So people of faith are being persecuted. Now, ideally, the pendulum is going to swing where I saw that ad. Did you see that? Well, somebody sent it to me. I don't watch TV, but there was an Apple ad that showed like a Caucasian family. It looked like a mom, a dad, and a daughter. Interestingly, all of the same race. And the Apple ad was very kind of tugged at the heartstrings, and it showed a really caring dad, which is such a contrast to those sitcoms that are always showing the dad as some bumbling fool and only the wife can take care of everything and all of that. So people were commenting on that ad, commenting on the actors that were portraying the roles, and commenting on the entire theme, saying, wow, is this a sea change? Is this the pendulum swinging back to more traditional values, traditional family, unit and so forth? And I understand families come in all shapes and sizes. I'm not commenting on that, all colors and ages, and that's beautiful. It's just interesting that a large company has taken a dramatic shift in let's say the ambiance or the tone or the theme of a commercial. So some people are saying, wow, maybe the pendulum is swinging back to more of a conservative, traditional approach. And maybe that's going to happen with people of faith as well. Well, I can tell you as of today, that's not happening. And I know this because there are major corporations that are still persecuting people of faith. Interestingly, when we talk about your faith, that is protected under civil rights laws. Now, trust me, I don't think we need any laws to protect our beliefs. We should be able to live a life without government intrusion and infliction and persecution and oppression and tyranny. I am 100% on board with you. It just so happens that there are laws that strengthen your position as a person of faith. It is illegal to discriminate against you in the workplace in any place of public accommodation, meaning a restaurant, a hotel, a movie theater, a bank, a grocery store, a public park, a courtroom, any of these places, you have the right of equal access. You have the right to enjoy all of the same privileges, services. This is the language of the law, and this is protected under public accommodations. And public accommodations, it's a funny word, but it means not only public places like parks and courtrooms and so forth, but it also means private businesses that are engaged in commerce. So have you ever been in a store and there's a sign over the door that says these doors must remain unlocked during business hours? Because everyone has a right to come in if it is open to the public. Now, some fellow that's a CPA with his own office on the fourth floor of a building, that doesn't apply. He's not open to the public. He's sitting there working, taking clients on a case-by-case basis. I don't think that would apply unless he tried to discriminate against taking a client because of their age, their race, their gender. There are two, and either of those genders. And I hope YouTube heard that. Let's see. And your ethnic background. This all falls under a category of civil rights. Civil rights laws came into effect in 1964. So we're talking about, what is that, 60 years ago, yet companies are still violating them. Now, whether or not you believe we need laws for that, they do exist and they should be followed. Yet these companies are violating them, not against ethnicity, not against age. Perhaps they are, but not to the extent that I'm seeing with people of faith. Certainly not on a gender issue or sexual orientation or marital status. In California, there's an entire laundry list of protected characteristics. So if you've been divorced, if you're unmarried, if you're whatever the case may be, military vet, there's a whole laundry list that expands these federal protections. Again, I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, but it is a fact that those laws exist. Personally, I believe business owners have a right to allow who they want in their business and who they don't. That's still being fought out in the courts, in the federal courts. We've seen that with discrimination cases, with a website designer that did not want to create a website using certain language that would be an objection to her religious beliefs. There's a case with cake makers that are happy to make cakes for anyone at all, any gender, any orientation, any ethnicity, age, background, what have you, but not to celebrate a same-sex marriage. That was a Supreme Court ruling that actually said that person has protected speech as well. They cannot be compelled to write on a cake, congratulations on your wedding, if they were compelled to write that speech. They were happy to make cupcakes or pies or whatever else that people wanted, but not to celebrate a wedding. That's a sticky situation, I understand, because you've got the religious beliefs and then you've got the sexual orientation. But the fact is, they weren't being, well, that's a whole nother story, and I've covered it many times. Similar situations I've covered on this channel many times. I'm trying to talk about those that are being persecuted are people of faith. So what I want to do is actually give you the solutions. So you can probably read between the lies that are being spewed by the government, your children's college, nursing school, administrators that are also trying to prevent nursing students from going through their clinical studies unless they become human pincushions, medical settings, and of course, immigration status. This also applies if you are applying for a job. This is where it came to mind because I just heard from a healthy American who said, Peggy, I've watched your videos about discrimination in the workplace, but I'm applying for jobs and I just want to make sure I have this correctly. When do I talk about my status? And I said, you don't talk about it. You don't talk about it at all. Even if they have on their application, must be a human pincushion in order to work for this company. You go through the interview. Once they offer you the job, and once you accept the job, it's likely that they will then ask you for your paperwork. And here's the first strategy. You say, oh, are you, or one thing you could say is, where do I file my exemption? And you just leave it at that. It's matter of fact. You're very confident. You're not asking for any particular help because you have the right to not participate in any activities that you object to based on your religious beliefs, observance, or practice. And this has been upheld in the courts again and again and again. All right. I think it was in the National Guard or the Army Reserves where there was a Sikh who grew a beard. That was part of his religious observance, was to have a beard. And in the Army, you have to be clean shaven. Well, this went to a federal court and it was ruled on in favor of the Sikh, saying this beard is a part of his religious observance, and the Army had to allow for that. So I know that these cases have been ruled on again and again. There was a woman that refused, well, I don't like to use the word refuse. It sounds like she explained that she could not wear pants because her religious observance included wearing long skirts. The issue is that she worked for a company where there were machines around, and it could very well be dangerous for her to be walking around the floor with these machines where the edge of her skirt could get caught. Like, well, there you go, Peggy. That is a threat. That is dangerous for her, dangerous for others that might need to come to her aid, dangerous for the company. It might break a machine or something. What do? She has a right not to wear pants. Well, as my healthy Americans, you probably already know. They were required to assign her to a different job that didn't entail being on that factory floor. Now, if there was no other job and that was the only job available, then it legitimately would be a hardship on the company. Let me give you the next tip. It's not a hardship on the company for you to work there as a pureblood breathing oxygen. It's nearly impossible for your employer or potential employer to prove that. And there are laws in California, for example, that protect even a person who is carrying a disease in order to prove that they are a threat to someone else. They have to know they have the disease. They have to intentionally seek to infect someone, and then it has to be proven that that person was the one who indeed infected them. It's not possible. I mean, people are exposed to all sorts of things, toxins in the food, in the air, in the water. There are stressors. There are other things. There are genetic, perhaps, dispositions to illnesses and stress and so forth. So no, you can't prove that someone made you sick in terms of these laws. So that would be another strategy. But I want to go back to the applying for the job. You state to the potential employer, you don't say anything until you've been offered the job. And if they ask you before they've offered you the job saying, well, and you're a pincushion, right? You can say, oh, I normally don't share my personal medical information. Does this constitute a job offer? And you're very pleasant, very professional, very friendly, very cordial. You're not coming straight out of the gate. You can't discriminate against me, because you're trying to educate the people as well. We had a case where a woman was offered a job by a school district. This other case happens to be with the school district as well. And you know how they feel about breathing oxygen. Yeah, they're not in favor of it. And okay, before anyone puts a comment saying, Peggy, we don't breathe oxygen. There's all sorts of other gases that we breathe in the air. I gotcha. So breathing oxygen helps keep you alive. And actually, it's required for staying alive. And so when this woman got her job offer, and then they wanted all the rigmarole with the pincushion status and all, and she said, oh, no, I'm exempt. And they said, oh, we would like you to rescind your acceptance. In other words, we want you to say you no longer want the job, that you're declining our job offer. Do you know why they said that? You probably do. Because the employer now has made an offer and they are bound by law. It's not an option. They are required under legal duty, under law, Title VII, and whatever state laws would protect you as well, to accommodate that employee. And she, with my help, we went back and forth, and she said, well, I'm not going to turn down the job. I accept the job. I accept the money, and I accept all of the terms. But this is my religious belief, and I can't compromise it. So here's the thing. She was like a curriculum coordinator. She didn't even need to go to the classrooms. It was, online work and pulling together information. All of this could be done virtually. And she explained that. My belief is that some of these employers are so immature, if I can put it that way, or ignorant, or intentionally trying to punish those individuals who had the wherewithal to stand up for their rights. Who knows if those HR people in this case were thinking to themselves, well, I had to do it. I'm not going to let her off the hook. I wouldn't be surprised if that is a large number of situations where it's the people themselves who are reviewing all the materials thinking she's not going to get away with it. I had to do it. Completely ignorant of the law. So that's why it's so important for you to be educated on the law. I've got so many videos under my religious exemption playlist where you can learn. I mean, I've spent, I don't know, countless hours learning this over the years. I just rolled up my sleeves and educated myself on it. I didn't know about this prior to all of the government oppression, but because I love to teach and simplify and strategize and stand up for the underdog, I've dedicated my life over the last several years to helping people live by their convictions. So in the case of the school district here, they said, well, we found another job for you, but it's going to be $4 less an hour, and you don't get the signing bonus. Can you imagine? Well, that's a big no, and because we have a contract, an employment contract. If you want to give me another job, I'm going to be paid the same, and I'm getting my bonus. It all turned out that she did get paid what the job offer was. They did accommodate her, but think of all of the people who folded along the way. I can't even imagine how stressful that is. These are your earnings. This is your profession. So here's the next strategy I want to give you. If you have an employer, and this is a freebie. I hope that the attorneys are watching this, the attorneys who are fighting for the plaintiffs. These last two, I think, are the most bulletproof. Can I say bullets on this channel? The next one is about the sincerity of your belief. Because the employers know they can't prove that you could make someone sick. And if they do trot that one out, and if you've worked there for a while, you can say, well, can you give me a list of all the people I've infected so far? So I can send them a condolence note, and pray for them. And can you let me know how it was determined that I was the one that made them sick? You see, they can't do that. And in a courtroom, you need what's called evidence to prove your position. And if the employer is asserting that you're the one that is infecting everyone, well, the burden of proof is on them. You don't have to prove that you're not sick. By the way, there's no law against being sick. That's what they're trying to do. So no, you don't have to prove anything. They have to prove it. So they know that they can't prove that. The other thing is they could say, well, it's much too costly to keep you on. This is too much of a hardship. So they can't prove that you're a threat. So they're going to say, well, it's far too difficult on the company. So here's your next tip. So it's not difficult to fire me and have my position be vacant. That's not difficult. It's not difficult to spend man hours and time to advertise for someone to fill my position, to spend all that time recruiting, maybe paying an outside recruiter, working up the job description, and then trying to interview people, line up all the interviews. How many hours does it take to line up all the interviews and do the interviews? Multiple interviews, background checks, whatever else they do. Not only that, then they have to actually make the job offer, more paperwork, more time, more people involved. That person might not even accept the job. And if they do, then you've got to bring them on board, and then you've got to onboard them. You've got to train them for the job that they fired you from. That's not a hardship. I mean, come on. I don't even know if the attorneys are using these strategies. I don't think they are. They should. They're so simple and, dare I say, brilliant and common sense. So the next one is, I've got two more for you. I just think these are knocking them out of the park. And I hope, share these far and wide, all right? The next two, they're going to say, well, we just don't believe that you really have a religious objection. We just don't think you're very religious. In other words, we don't believe you. This one is the slammest, dunkest of them all. All right. Let's say you've worked at a company for 2 months, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years, 20 years. let's get this straight. They trusted you to do the job. They hired you to be in a position in the company of responsibility. They're paying you for the work you're doing. They trust you to perform the work and they're giving you money for it. But they don't trust you when it comes to you expressing your faith. Okay, that one is that's a new one on me. That's bizarre. Imagine if a person of a certain sexual orientation had to defend their stance. If they had to bring in third-party affidavits and they had to sit before a board and they had to prove that their sexual persuasion was of one way or another, and the boss is going, I don't believe you. This is ludicrous. It's just unbelievably stupid. All right. So here we go. So right there, I would say, members of the jury, this corporation hired this employee in good faith. They trust the employee, except when it comes to their faith. Then I would do a subpoena on all the people on the, if I was the attorney, I'm giving this for free. Come on, these attorneys charge $800 an hour. I've got Noble Gold Investments sponsoring me, all right? That's why. I don't charge for this. You can get this information for free. So the attorney should say that to the jury. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I know it will come back because I have one other knock it out of the park. So you trust the employee to do the work, but you don't trust them to give their statement of faith. You don't trust them when it comes to their faith. How about this? They were willing to be fired over their faith. A lot of these cases that are going now to the federal courts, these people were fired. They didn't capitulate. They didn't give in and go, well, I gave it a try. Okay, let's go ahead, roll up the sleeve. They said, forget it. I don't care the cost. They lost years of income. Members of the jury, does this not demonstrate sincerity? Why, in the non-spinning world, would they give up their salary, perhaps their pension, whatever else goes along, all their perks, their health care? They'd be willing to give this up on the basis of their faith, yet you're maintaining that they're not sincere? That would be my argument. All right, I'll try to think of that other point. I'm sure I've mentioned it in previous videos. So there you have it. Patricia says common sense is hard to come by these days. And yes, we give all sorts of accommodation. The most important one is if I'm sick, I'll stay home, as one of the Healthy Americans mentioned, like we used to do prior to 2020. All right, the whole thing is kind of blown out of proportion. I'm looking to see who that person was who said their spouse couldn't get the immigration status. I'm not seeing it right now. So I'm not seeing it in the comments either. So I want to thank you all for being on board. I am never going to stop talking about this. It's stunning to me that, number one, the attorneys by and large are not well-versed in these strategies. Some of them have taken the approach of, well, it's not really, the product isn't what they said it was. That's not a very good approach, because what happens next time around when RFK tells us that they've all been tested and we can trust the agencies because he's in charge of them. So when the junior jab comes out, what are you going to say then? You can't go by the ingredients. You can't go by whether it works or not. That's not a strong argument to take. I also don't like the argument of, well, the government has the right to make you do that if it's the only option they have. No, it doesn't say that in the Constitution. All of that came from other court rulings. That's not the law that we're supposed to base our activities and actions and beliefs on. So I want to wrap up by saying this. Whether or not you are a person of faith, this is about your beliefs. This is about your thoughts. This is about your mind, your heart, your soul. We can't give that over to the tyrants. We can't allow employers, schools, doctors, immigration officers, flight attendants. We can't allow them to trample on those rights, because already the censorship that we're experiencing here, it's not just about saying something. It's about our ability to express what we believe. And in time, that's going to become that you can only believe what is acceptable by these authority figures. That's why I speak out against it. That's why I am opposed to the government schools. It's not just the schools. It starts there. It conditions young people, young minds to listen to authority. And I understand that there is a place for that. You know, obviously, if you're working for a company and, or I don't know, you're in the military or you're a child and you have parents. I mean, there are places for that, but not when it comes to your personal belief, your conscience, your heart, your mind. That is not up for grabs. And that's why I do what I do. Friends, I'm going to mention this at the end of every broadcast. I've got a free Substack. It's a blog. It's like a newsletter. You go to peggyhall.substack.com. You sign up for free. And I publish these articles about 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week. And these articles are basically an extension of my videos. And I don't do on every single video, but on the videos where there are links or images that I want to share, then I have a Substack for you. The reason why I want you to be on the Substack is in case this channel goes down. You can find me. We can stay connected. I don't do anything with your name there other than send you the Substack post. All right. Some of you have gifted me and blessed me with a paid subscription of $5 a month or $50 a year, and you get the same content. However, those of you that have become a paid subscriber on Substack, or you've been so kind by sending me a financial gift in the mail, it's in the description box. You click that little point that says more, and you can see the address there. You're invited to join me. I want to thank you. I want to bless you with a private, complimentary live webinar that we do every month. And we often have guest speakers. We're together for about 60 to 90 minutes. And the beautiful thing is we take your questions. You can type in your questions. We answer them live. There's a very interactive chat. And you also have access to all of the previous webinars that we've done, which goes back over 2 years. So we've got guests like Dr. Sam Bailey, we've got Dr. Chari, we've got Dr. Amanda Vollmer. I've done lots of interesting videos with many freedom fighters. And this month, we've got Heather Martinson talking about overcoming objections to getting the children out of the public prison schools. And the following month in January, we're going to have Dr. Chari back to talk about getting your new year off on the right foot to be healthier and happier without government intrusion. She is an MD, but a holistic integrative doctor who does not follow the mainstream medical merry-go-round, does not go for any of those rituals of the government. And then in February, we're going to have Laura Hayes, who is the mother of an injured child. She's been on this channel publicly, but there's so much that we want to talk about. And she actually is very familiar with Bobby Kennedy and has had lots of interactions. She's going to share some of her communications with him, some of her frustrations. And I think it's very important for us to continue to be aware of what's going on in this new administration. I know, two wings of the same bird. They're all actors on the stage. I understand, but I'm not going to put my head in the sand. I still want to know what's going on. I want to speak out against it. And I do believe that there is a rising tide of people waking up, standing up, speaking out, and never again, hashtag never have, never will. Those who have complied, many have told me, never again will they give in, give up, or give over their freedom. And to that, I say amen. All right, friends, thanks for being on board. I'll be back with you tomorrow covering some of the news going on and always over at the Substack. Thanks also to the moderators and to all y'all healthy Americans that participate by leaving a comment, sharing, liking, and subscribing so that we can outwit this YouTube algorithm. All right, see you soon, everybody.